Alright guys, the time is now for another entry in our Community Cast series. In this match, we're going to have a showdown between the Dwarves, who are going to be led by the Gobbo King, and the Dark Elves, who are going to be led by ODM Shidoku. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So for the Dwarves, they do indeed have a very wide, thick army. You can see he spent most of his frontline resources on the miners, which are very cheap. They only cost 325 gold. They do okay. They have 80 armor, so against bleak swords and dread spears and things like that, they're going to be pretty resilient for their cost. On top of that, they have a little bit of armor piercing damage, so if your opponent goes with heavy armor and Harganeth executioners, yes, they're going to get absolutely pounded, but at least they'll be able to give a little bit of damage back. So mainly miners in the front line. So it looks like, yeah, it's going to be all miners here. And, you know, honestly, that allows him to spend a lot of money on other things. So you can see he does indeed have a gyro bomber, which are quite expensive. I think they cost like 1,100 or 1,200. So I do like blasting charges quite a bit in this matchup. Miners with blasting charges, very good at melting Sisters of Slaughter, bleak swords, dread spears, things like that. Gives you quite a bit of utility, but of course, if you're trying to go very wide, you can save 75 gold per if you just go with the standard miners. So just standard miners across the entire front line. In the secondary line, he does have a firing line. So Bugman's Rangers here, Bugman's Rangers here, which are undoubtedly one of the best units on the roster. They regenerate, they have pretty good combat stats if they have to fight in melee, very good at picking apart Witch Elves, Sisters of Slaughter, counter-firing enemy missile units because they do have shields. Just an incredibly good unit. He does also have the Althar's Raiders, I think. No, just standard Rangers with great weapons, so he does have some AP as well in melee, so a bit of a dual purpose here. And what's cool about his strategy is Gobbo has the ultimate onion strategy. So essentially the miners, yeah, they're going to get pounded, of course, but the entire time the miners are kind of defending, the Rangers and Bugman's Rangers are going to be shooting. Then what Gobbo King is probably going to do is just fall back with his Bugman's Rangers. He's going to just do a massive retreat, which is going to pull the enemy forces into a massive firing line of Thunders. So you can see back here, he does have 1, 2, 3, 4 Thunders, I think, in total with the Althar's Raiders. So he does indeed have those to really take out high-value targets with Marked by Althar. I like that quite a bit. He's got a Rune Lord as well, which I think is one of the best choices. The Rune of the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin. If they have like Harganeth Executioners or, you know, Blades of the Blood Queen like the Dark Elves do over here, it's going to be really good for melting those guys down. So Dwarf Warriors in the back. So if the onion really starts to get cracked, he's going to be pulling forward a couple groups of Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, as well as standard Dwarf Warriors and I think some Longbeards back here in the floor. So we saw. I think let's actually go ahead and check. No, those are just Dwarf Warriors. So that's pretty much it for Gobbo's army. Of course, he does have the Gyro Bomber. The Gyro Bomber is it's a very micro-intensive unit, but you know, if anyone can handle the micro of the Gyro Bomber, it's going to be the Gobbo King. And you can get some pretty good direct bombs on like groups of Dark Shards because most people bunch them up, or you know, infantry lines that are very spaghettied. It can get some decent value, but it's still a very tough unit to control. For the Dark Elves, they do have a couple groups of Harpies, which I like quite a bit. If someone does decide to go with like surprise gyrocopters or things like that, Harpies can really put a lot of pressure on those. Granted, Gobbo has plenty of Overwatch fire to protect his Gyro Bomber, but yeah, the Harpies are going to give chase. They can also attack lightly armored dwarf missile units like Rangers and Rangers, as well as Bugman's Rangers. So yeah, they can do some pretty good work there. For the rest of his army, Bleak Swords in the front line, Blades of the Blood Queen in the back, which are going to be anchored with Malekith the Witch King here with Soul Stealer and Chillwind. Is that actually called Chillwind or Chilled something? I think it's Chillwind, yeah. And then he does have Sisters of Slaughter. So this has been something I've been seeing a lot of tournament games. People bring Sisters against Dwarves, which on paper, you might think, oh, that doesn't sound very good. They don't have the best AP, they're lightly armored, but they actually do really well against Dwarf Infantry. They can mulch them, 60 melee defense, and poison as well. So he does have Sisters, a couple groups of Dark Shards, Malekith on his Lizard Limo, Harpies, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The Dark Shards do, of course, have shields, which is going to be helpful, but without further ado, guys, let's see what happens. So the Harpies decide to come in, but when they take some Thunder Overwatch fire from the forest, they immediately pull back. The Dark Shards are going to be shooting into the miners. The miners will hold for quite some time against the Bleak Swords here. So Gobbo King forming a bit of a very stretched out box formation. These guys are going to be kind of absorbing the charge of the Bleak Swords and also corralling in the Sisters of Slaughter. In the front, the Sisters and the Bleak Swords and everyone are just going to be going after the miners. But Gobbo King pulling them into a lot of fire. So the Thunders getting a great concave right here. These Longbeards are going to go fight Sisters as well. And it looks like a lot of the fighting is underway. So the Gyro Bomber gets a beautiful bombing run right here on the Bleak Sword. So I know what you guys are here for. I know what you like. We're going to just focus on the Gyro Bomber for a minute. So the Gyro Bomber gets a nice bomb here. And this is like the perfect situation. These Dark Shards are such a juicy target. Just like lined up, just bread waiting to be buttered. So right now the Gyro Bomber is just positioning. You can see Gobbo King getting a bit of an arc here. And I can't remember if he gets the first one off, but the Harpy is getting decimated by those guys in the back. So he actually misses the bombing here. But if memory serves, he comes right back across and nets that value. Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin going down on the Sisters here. Come on, Gyro Bomber. Entertain us. Entertain us. So the Gyro Bomber is going to fly and just do massive damage against these Dark Shards, just absolutely wrecking those guys, taking them down to 25%. So huge value so far. So Gobbo King, very methodical here, is just going to be roaming back and forth, going after these high-value targets. And now the Gyro Bomber, oh, this is perfect. He has Blades of the Blood Queen plus Bleak Swords here. This is going to be 2 for 1. So here it comes. Looks like he's getting ready for the bombing run. There's the control order. You can see, and here it comes. Just Apocalypse now. I wish I could do Flight of the Valkyries justice, but I probably can't. Here comes another bomb on top of these filthy Dark Elves. Feels pretty good to see those guys just get wrecked by the bomb. But yeah, it's doing a lot of work for sure. He's probably almost out of bombs. I would assume at this point he has 4, but these miners just valiantly holding back these heavy infantry, holding them in place, allowing these bombs to just do a ton of damage. So very, very good stuff here from the Gyro Bomber. As far as kills, it only has 3. I wonder if it keeps track of the bombs. I feel like it doesn't, but it did do a lot of damage here. In the back, a very good Soul Stealer going down from the Dark Elves, hitting 3 units, so it does hit Altar's Raiders, as well as these missile units. Harpies have engaged on Thunderers, and are doing quite a bit of damage on those, but there are many layers to this onion. The Bugman's Rangers providing some pretty good Overwatch fire. Bounce of power a little bit in Gabo's favor already, simply because of those gyro bombs just doing so much damage. Over here you can see Malekith does get a very good charge into these Altar's Raiders, so that's going to be nice. If Malekith can just run around here unimpeded, there aren't any Slayers to like kind of pin down a chariot, so it's really just going to be the crossfire. But look at that firepower coming down. These Thunders here getting some decent fire. The Bugman's Rangers shooting into the some of their fellow DAWI, unfortunately, but they are Thunders, so they're quite resilient here. Gyro Bomber looks like it's coming back for another run. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just going to be shooting at these Dark Shards with its machine gun there. Over here, the Rune Lord is going to be fighting the Blades of the Blood Queen, but this is great. I mean, he's holding these guys in place. There's throwing axes, just pelting them, doing a ton of damage, and yeah, just Dwarven firepower everywhere. Chillwind going down, doing a pretty nice disruption there. Also some nice damage on that very linear formation of the Rangers there. But the Blades of the Blood Queen are pretty much offline. They have 4 models, they're broken. They're definitely offline here. And there's a really substantial Dwarven pocket up here. You have the 2 Bugman's Rangers, you have Thunders just pouring massive volumes of fire into Malekith. Another group of Thunders here is turning, so it's one of those builds that like, whatever missile unit you chase, unless you're as wide as them, there's going to be other missile units just shooting at you, which is incredibly cool. So just look at the Dwarven firepower, just absolute insanity. But Malekith, despite all this, is doing a pretty good job. I mean, he's doing a lot of disruption, but he is marked by Altar, which is very dangerous. So if he steps anywhere near that Thunder line again, he's just going to get gadded down. Right here, the Gyro Bomber is doing some great work, just kind of machine gunning these Dark Shards with shields, and I don't think their shields are going to protect them against the heavy fire of the Gyro Bomber. In the back, Dwarf Warriors are also trading pretty cost effectively with Bleak Swords. They'll definitely win that because of their armor and high melee defense. And the Longbeards with great weapons. So we did have some Longbeards hidden in the forest after all. They're going to lose to the Sisters, but they're punching upwards for their cost. I would say they're doing pretty good there. I don't know if there's any other variables that disrupted this fight. So down here, the Rangers are getting some decent crossfire, just kind of decimating the Harpies, but there are a lot of Sisters left, a lot of, I guess, costly Dark Elf units. Over here, we do have another group of 68 Sisters of Slaughter who are going to be advancing. They're definitely going to be a menace to deal with, but the Dwarven Warriors are holding quite proudly. And oh man, there's nothing cooler than just like fire, just massive powder fire, just tearing into those Sisters of Slaughter. The Sisters actually do have shields, if I'm not mistaken. They're kind of similar to Slayers, but here comes the tumbling attack. They're just going to be rushing in here. You can see the leaping attacks from the Dark Elf Sisters going to be doing some work against these guys. But, even Thunderers are resilient. They have 80 armor, if I'm not mistaken, relatively good melee defense, and they can hold their own in melee combat. That's what's so cool about these Dwarven missile units. So yeah, the Sisters of Slaughter are still confident despite the fact that they're getting their salad tossed and just dragged through the mud a little bit. But the bounce power is still in Gobbo King's favor a little bit, but the Dark Elves certainly could pull it back. I mean, they have a lot of, these Sisters are going to tear through these Longbeards in a matter of moments, maybe opening up into the back line. You can see Gobbo is going to be kiting back with the Thunders, opening up the Sisters to a little bit more firepower, which is nice. Yeah, you can see they're kind of getting dragged through it a little bit. Malekith, I'm not sure where he went. I think he's hiding in the forest. Very good play here by Shidoku. He's basically just chasing down some of these routing dwarf forces. And, Malekith is in very dangerous shape. It's a little bit dangerous to have him in the main fight outside of the forest, because if these guys turn and focus him, man, that could be ugly. And it looks like Gobbo King did just give some orders to shoot at Malekith, so you can see the Bugman's Rangers and Thunders are turning about face, and they're going to start pouring some fire in there. So Malekith is going to run back into the trees, which is definitely a very, very smart choice here. So, if we take a big old look at the battlefield here, you can see Harpies are running off. We do have some Dark Shards in the back, which are being compromised by the Rune Lord. Gyro Bomber continuing to meme about and deal with the Bleak Swords in melee, getting down and dirty. Longbeards over here definitely getting mulched, actually. A little bit worse than I thought. I thought that it would be a closer fight, but the Sisters' melee defense, poison, physical resist is just, it's a lot to handle. A lot of people underestimate it because they just look at their stats and their armor and like, oh, they're going to get killed. But no, they're actually really, surprisingly tanky. Over here, the Bugman's Rangers, though, a lot of volume of fire coming in from the Dwarves, just wreaking absolute havoc on these, wreaking absolute havoc on the Sisters of Slaughter. Might be able to kill them before they get in there, but they do also have those shields again. I mean, it doesn't look like they have much shields, but I guess their gauntlets are kind of like mini shields or whatever. But yeah, they're taking a ton of damage just from the sheer volume of DAWI fire, just the truly proud folk of the mountains here. And let's see where Malekith is. I think Malekith's down here. Just him? No, this looks like it's another group of sisters. Malekith over here is going to be chasing down the Dwarf Warriors. Still using that tree line to kind of hide, but now he does have an opening. He has these Thunders. He can go after those guys, but, you know, the balance of power is just creeping ever so slowly into favor of the Gobbo King. As, you know, whatever the sisters end up chasing, they're always taking shots from some angle. It looks like a little bit of a two for one here. Some of the models actually stayed and locked up these Bugman's Rangers, and the other ones are chasing these Thunders. So pretty decent value train there from these sisters, but yeah, the Bugman's Rangers are pretty valiant for sure. I mean, they have high melee defense at 38. They can hit somewhat hard. They are poisoned, of course, but they regenerate as well. So definitely going to probably be able to push those guys off, hopefully for them. But the Thunders here kind of securing their position. The Rune Lord's coming back to the fight with some Dwarf Warriors. Definitely going to be enough. The Rune Lord is going to be tough to crack. I mean, he is very, very tanky in his own right. 120 armor against sisters is very, very good. These sisters do magic damage? No, they don't. So, but yeah, the Rune Lord's going to be a tough one to crack for sure. Malekith does jump on top of these Thunders here in the forest who are shaken. Definitely has done pretty well for himself with 121 kills, but for the most part, I think the Dwarves have a pretty massive advantage. They still have some ammunition left on some of these Thunders, but for the most part, it's just going to be a big DAWI blob pushing about. Most of the units with ammunition, very good stuff by Shidoku, of course, was able to focus down, but you know, the Gobbo King just relentless, and Gobbo King's micro was insane. Like, he had layers and layers of missile fire. Whenever something was being chased, he would run it and then shoot it in the back with the other units, you know, therefore netting some really, really good value with his missile units. It was a thing of beauty for sure. And the Gyro Bomber, I mean, has a fair amount of HP at 2,000. It's going to be tough to kill in melee. He's going to come and buzzsaw some of these guys Indiana Jones style. You remember that scene in Indiana Jones where he, like, kicks the henchman into the helicopter blades? That's basically what's happening here. So that's going to be it. Very well played to both players. That was a crazy game for sure. And I do think that's the way. From my experience as a Dwarf player, Gobbo King's probably been playing more Dwarves than I have for sure. But in my experience, I think it's always more cost effective to go wide. Going elite Dwarves and elite infantry, sometimes it's nice to mix in like one group of Ironbreakers or something against factions that are really going to be heavy. But I think just going wide is the way to go. It's like Dwarves are almost like a Zerg faction in a way. Like going wide, just spreading out the threats and forcing your opponent just to deal with it. I mean, because even low tier Dwarf infantry like Miners have 80 armor. I mean, that's tough to crack for 325 gold. So I do think that going wide is the way to go in most matchups for the Dwarves. I mean, there's a couple where you can get away with elite builds, but there's just too many punishing effects. Like, for example, if you had like more Longbeards and a more narrow front line, Malekith would have been able to do more work. The Blades of the Blood Queen probably would have done more work. It just would have been less effective. And Sisters are just going to outtrade you anyways. So just go wide and kind of drag your opponent through the mud using Runes of Wrath and Ruin and things like that. And I think that tactic was very heavily illustrated by the Gobbo King here, who's just a masterful player. Gyro Bomber as well was very, very solid. This bad boy was able to get some good kills. I mean, and he was able to, like, normally when you take a Gyro Bomber, it really cuts into your army and it's like, there's a noticeable discrepancy, but with the width of his army, it wasn't that big of a deal. And his bombs were good. His control was good with it. It definitely probably paid for itself. And for Shidoku's army, I've been seeing this a lot. The Sisters, I mean, I personally play a little bit differently, but I'm not a good Dark Elf player. He's probably a much better Dark Elf player than I am. But I personally like to just go more old school with, like, 4 or 5 Harganeth Executioners and getting a couple Cav units as well to pressure and stuff. But I mean, for the most part, no complaints. It was a solid build. It was a very close game. I think the Gyro Bombs in the beginning really kind of set things apart. So very well played to the Gobbo King. Make sure to go check out his channel if you haven't. There will absolutely be a link in the description below. And also very well played to ODM Shidoku. So thanks again for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed, and we will see you guys next time.